Within international geopolitics, a country's standing and ability to influence other countries have historically been heavily influenced by its nuclear arsenal. Russia is a major actor among the nations that have utilized nuclear energy, with a vast network of nuclear alliances that reach far beyond its boundaries. It has established itself as a major player in nuclear energy and technology thanks to its extensive nuclear arsenal and strategic allies. Russia has continued to grow the number of its African partners in nuclear projects, with Burkina Faso being the latest addition to the list. International attention has recently focused on the junction of Burkina Faso and Rosatom, the state corporation of Russia that specializes in nuclear energy and high-tech products. So, in today's video, we will delve into the details of the Burkina Faso-Russian deal, exploring its implications for both parties and shedding light on the broader context of Russia's strategic moves in Africa. We will also see the evolving dynamics of energy cooperation and the geopolitical landscape in West Africa. Without wasting much of your time, let's get started. Rosatom is a state-owned company based in Moscow, focused on nuclear energy, nuclear non-energy products, and high-tech items. It was founded in 2007 and consists of around 350 enterprises, including scientific research institutions, a nuclear weapons facility, and the only nuclear icebreaker fleet in the world. Burkina Faso is about to sign a roadmap with Rosatom, which will enable the building of a nuclear power plant there. Yakuba Zelbriguba, the Minister of Energy, Mines and Quarries for Burkina Faso, made this revelation in an interview conducted off-site during the International Forum on Nuclear Energy, which took place on the Russian territory of Sirius. Guba claimed that the construction of this power plant will first assist in reducing the energy deficit and eventually assist all facets of Burkina Faso's socio-economic life. Take note that this agreement began late last year, in October, when the Russian company and Burkina Faso signed a memorandum of understanding for the construction of a nuclear power plant in the West African nation. The agreement was signed at the Russian Energy Week in Moscow, which was attended by Burkina Faso's Energy Minister, Simon Pierre Boussim. The document fulfilled the request made by Captain Ibrahim Traore at a meeting with Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin during the Russia-Africa Summit. The agreement laid the groundwork for collaboration in several areas, such as methods for developing nuclear power, using nuclear energy for purposes other than energy in business, agriculture, and healthcare, building nuclear infrastructure in Burkina Faso, and educating the public about nuclear technologies. The idea of a Burkina Faso-Russia deal specializing in nuclear energy and high-tech products raises several key points regarding its implications. Among Burkina Faso's urgent problems are the jihadist insurgency, food insecurity, and poverty. Given its complexity and cost, nuclear energy is unlikely to be a top priority for their current requirements. Even though high-tech items have potential benefits, their effective utilization would require major infrastructure modifications. Even though Russia has a nuclear program, it is extremely unlikely that Burkina Faso will receive such sensitive technology. Safety and security would be top priorities, and nuclear cooperation must adhere to stringent rules set forth by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Similar restrictions are frequently placed on high-tech exports due to concerns about national security. Note that apart from Burkina Faso, Rosatom is strengthening cooperation with other African countries, including Mali, Zimbabwe, and Burundi. Last summer, at the second Russia-Africa Summit, Rosatom proposed creating a nuclear fleet for Africa to provide the continent with electricity. The military government of Mali also announced in October 2023 that it had inked a series of agreements with Russia to develop a gold refinery in the nation's capital, Bamako. These agreements are part of Russia's ongoing efforts to increase its influence in the region. In an interview that aired on state television, Minister Alassane Sanu stated that the agreement, which was a non-binding memorandum of understanding, involved constructing a refinery with an annual capacity of 200 tons. Rosatom signed a deal with Mali in October to explore for minerals and produce nuclear energy. Sanu said he had also signed a deal with a Russian firm to build a 200 to 300 megawatt solar power plant by mid-2025. Russia is coming with all it's got into Africa. Their comprehensive courting of Burkina Faso in recent months has also included 25,000 metric tons of free wheat, a personal security detail for military leader Captain Ibrahim Traore, and 100 paramilitary fighters. However, it should be noted that the Wagner Group mercenary, now known as the Africa Corps, has a track record of randomly terminating civilians and stealing natural resources from its host nations. The Burkina Faso government, which came to power in September 2022, has not been able to provide security for the civilian population in the face of a violent insurgency headed by several extremist militant groups that have taken control of sizable portions of the nation. In an attempt to support the Burkinabe military, Traore and his transitional administration have enlisted civilians, sometimes through forced conscription, into the divisive volunteers for the defense of the homeland militia. Traore has turned to Russia for his safety since the arrest of multiple Burkinabe military commanders in September 2023 on charges of plotting a coup. Why does Russian involvement in Africa matter? Moscow's growing efforts to promote anti-Western sentiment and present itself as a friend of African nations run the risk of making the continent a flashpoint in the larger geopolitical struggle between the West and Russia. Africa's hopes for democracy are being undermined by Russia's support of authoritarian regimes, which includes a number of coups in recent times. Concurrently, the engagement of Russian private military companies is intensifying hostilities, exacerbating violations of human rights, and promoting an increasing militarization of governance. From an economic perspective, Russia's fascination with the continent's abundant resources will impact significant supply chains, particularly those involving some of the key technologies driving the worldwide movement towards sustainable energy. Simultaneously, Africa's access to vital Russian commodities has been challenged by the continued aftermath of the Ukrainian war, indicating impending problems to food and energy security. Some foreign countries are alarmed by Russia's growing influence in Africa, while others see possible advantages. Many analysts believe that China is unlikely to help contain Russia since it is often indifferent to the domestic political affairs of its allies. Both nations want to push the West aside so they may live together on a continent, and in the face of Western sanctions, Russia's reliance on China has only increased. Competition over Africa's resources could eventually become a fault line between Beijing and Moscow, and China's emphasis on maintaining stability above all else could conflict with Russia's attempts to foment instability. It is worth noting that African countries are at a juncture when opportunity and difficulty intersect. Their development depends on these important infrastructure corridors, which raises questions about possible exploitation and loss of sovereignty over economies and resources. To protect their sovereignty and national interests, these countries need to skillfully negotiate the conflicting interests of major world powers. The emergence of these corridors may bring about profound structural shifts in the political and economic systems of Africa. Strong regulatory frameworks, measures for transparency, and safeguards to preserve national interests and sovereignty might all be necessary. African countries can use the continuous struggle for influence between big powers to their advantage to get favorable agreements and infrastructure investments that support long-term growth. The creation of various infrastructure projects highlights the emergence of a multipolar world, even beyond these particular corridors. Major infrastructure and economic projects are being undertaken by several world countries to demonstrate their influence. Smaller countries now have more possibilities to negotiate better terms and steer clear of being overly dependent on any one dominant power thanks to this increasing multipolarity. The dynamics of international trade could be altered by these corridors. They could reroute trade routes, impacting the global movement of resources and goods. Adaptive methods are necessary to prosper in this dynamic environment, as even countries that are not directly involved in these sectors are likely to experience effects on their trade patterns and economic interests. The public's complaints about Russian tactics may be exaggerated, but the Russian cooperation does not prioritize Burkinabe citizens or adequately handle the country's worsening security situation. Russia's primary goals may be to exploit resources, project military might, and increase its influence in the region. It refuses to address the underlying reasons for Burkina Faso's economic misery and instability. Assume the United States is to resist Russia's pernicious influence spreading throughout Africa, including Burkina Faso. Then, through development initiatives, the United States should concentrate on these common goals and values with Africans: democracy, human rights, and the capacity and will to assist communities in resolving the underlying causes of violence and instability. After all, disinformation spreads because citizens are dissatisfied. But will citizens now be satisfied with Russia adding Burkina Faso to its list of nuclear partners? This question can only be answered by the citizens of Burkina Faso. To put it frankly, it is not a surprising development that Burkina Faso and Russia's state business have reached an agreement for nuclear energy and high-tech products. Even while the public statements seem to point towards such a large collaboration, closer inspection exposes substantial obstacles. The Russian expertise in these delicate areas is unlikely to be freely shared, and Burkina Faso's immediate requirements are elsewhere. It is more likely that the announcements are a symbolic act of closer connections. The true narrative is found in Burkina Faso's larger pattern of looking for new allies to deal with its security issues. This development emphasizes how the geopolitical landscape in Africa is changing and how new parties are posing challenges to old countries. A more complex picture will probably become apparent in the years to come, as Burkina Faso would have to strike a careful balance with different partners to ensure its future. However, do you believe this development will lead to stronger relations between Burkina Faso and Russia, or Russia is planning a different agenda in Africa? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the New Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too, so you get notified whenever we upload interesting videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in our next video.